Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Beth and I promise I don't normally sound like this. As you can tell, I've still got that cold and my throat is not too happy with me, but I finished the Revenge of the Shadow King, the Grey Griffins Book 1 by Derek Benz and J.S. Lewis, and I need to get it back to the library. So I wanted to go ahead and do a review for you guys real quick. I will try not to subject you to the sound of my voice for too long, but there are some things that I wanted to talk to you about. So let's get to it. If you've watched some of my recent videos, you know that I've had a few issues with this book. So I'm just going to tell you right off the bat that I'm giving it a 3 out of 5 stars. But I am going to tell you 5 things I really enjoyed about the book and 5 things I did not enjoy so much about the book. And then hopefully you will make up your own mind about this series. So I'm going to start out with the 5 things that I really liked about the book. First of all, I really liked that they incorporated a lot of King Arthur mythology. It is a book that is literally based around King Arthur mythology, and so they incorporated a lot of it. They also incorporated the Knights Templar as being kind of part of the King Arthur myth and something that came from that legend, which I really liked. Secondly, the premise of this book is based off of not just being King Arthur, but also using a card game. Like, it's almost a role playing card game. It's called Round Table, but it sounds an awful lot like the card game Magic, where you have the different creatures and they each have like an attack number and a shield number and a magic number and all of that. And then you kind of play them against each other. And I played that game a lot in high school and at the beginning of college. So it was a lot of fun to read a book that was basically 3 sixth graders playing a game that was very similar to one I played in high school. So it was really interesting to see that. The third thing I really liked about this book is the way that they set up the characters. They didn't have just the chosen one, although that is a trope that they used. There is a chosen one, but he wasn't just chosen because of something he found or something he did. It's a family heritage, and he has a group of friends with him so that they all become the chosen one, although he is most definitely the inheritor of this great thing that he has to protect. There is a group of them that have been playing this game together that are best friends. And so this is a group of chosen ones with the inheritor of the mantle and then his friends. They all kind of become that trope together. And speaking of characters, number 4, the fourth thing that I really enjoyed about this book is the way that they talk about the different adult characters. There is a teacher who is just like a mean, horrible person, which you kind of expect from the protagonists being a group of 12-year-olds. But then they also have a teacher that they love and who turns out to be somebody very special. There is an adult that they look up to as a grandfather and then somebody's grandmother that are kind of big deals and really help them out as well. There's another adult who's really preparing them, and their interactions with the adults are pretty true to life. There are some that they are angry with and that they fight with, and then there are some that they treat very respectfully, and those are treated uh, fairly true to life, even though this is a fantastical book with 12-year-old protagonists. They did a good job of the writing the interactions between adults and 12-year-olds, which you don't often see in a middle grade book like this. And the fifth thing I want to talk about that I really enjoyed is that they did not use the old trope where all of these crazy things are happening and nobody notices except the chosen one and his little group of minions or in this case, the Grey Griffins group and the adults that they're dealing with. No, the entire town sees that things are happening. The forest is kind of growing. The weather is changing. The bad fairies, like the worse the fairy is, and these are like trolls and goblins and things like that. They're all part of the world of fairy. And the worse one of those creatures is, the colder it gets. And as it gets colder, it's changing the weather. So it's actually only in like September, in, I believe they're in Minnesota. Anyway, the little town's name is Avalon. And even though it should still be a fairly warm fall, the weather has changed, and so it's raining. The grass is growing. The forest is kind of eating the outskirts of town at this point, and everybody can see it. Nobody is sitting there trying to say that nothing is happening. They can all see it, and they don't know why it's happening, but they can see it. And so there's kind of a town-wide issue. People are talking about it, trying to figure out what's going on. And I really appreciated that they included little sentences in a couple of different areas that show you that the entire town can see that there's something wrong. They just don't know what's happening. Now it's time for the 5 things I disliked the most about this book, and I will try to keep it to a minimum because I have pretty much discussed all of these in one way or another during some previous videos. Number 1 is the way that they are shoving the descriptions at you. It's in your ears, up your nose, down your throat, shoved into your brain in any possible way they can. Just info dumping these descriptors on you, and it is absolutely insane the way that they do that. I believe the book could have probably been 100 plus pages shorter without those descriptors. It feels like a first draft that did not get edited completely. Just not not good at all. Number 2, the way that the children are written. I enjoyed the group itself, but they're not exactly multifaceted creatures. The girl Natalia is to an extent, but the rest of them are just not completely formed people. And I really wish that more authors would take the time to add, because it doesn't take that much, guys. When you're writing, when you're working on your hashtag hot and sticky summer writing project, if you have characters that are people, that are friends, don't make them just one sided. Look at your best friend. When you describe him or her, do you only say that, oh, he's a protector and he will beat the snot out of people if they get mean to me? No. Yes, my best friend is like that, but he's also hilarious and a nerd, and loves to eat hot dogs right out of the fridge and share them with his dog, which is gross, but it's part of who he is. And I described him in 3 sentences, and look at that, he is a whole person. When you have a group of characters that are friends, let them each be a person, not just one-sided. Drives me insane. All right, number 3. There were several instances in this book where he would say something like, the one at the end is Max, the main character, has walked over to a chair and he turns around to sit down. And then there's this paragraph about all of these images of himself growing up and recently just telling his parents that he hated them and all this other stuff floods through his head, and he just knows they're going to lose this battle, and then he walks across the room to turn around and sit down in a chair. The only chair in the room is in the center of the room that he was just turning around to sit down in. So it kind of goes back and changes things, or forgets that he's already there and makes him do it again. And it takes you out of the story because you think, well, didn't he just do that? And you have to go back and reread and say, okay, yeah, he did. I really hate that. That is a big pet peeve of mine, and that happens several times in the story. Number 4, at the end of the story, a main character turns into something else, and you kind of know the whole time that she is this other being, but you don't have any idea that she's the type of being that she is because it has never once been mentioned through the entire book. And then at the very end of the book, all of a sudden, ta da! There's that type of person, there's that type of being. And it just doesn't make any sense to the way the rest of the story is written for her to be that kind of being. And that was one of the shorter descriptions. She seemed very, I don't want to give it away because it's actually a very well written battle between her and Morgan Le Fay. So I don't want to ruin what she is, but it just doesn't make sense for her to be that. She should have been something else, and it would have made just as much uh, of a good fight scene, maybe even a better fight scene. It would have made much more sense. And then finally, number 5, the thing that I hated even more than all of the info dumping descriptions that are littered throughout the entire book. The main character, Max Sumner, his parents are getting a divorce, and we find out on the front page his parents are getting a divorce. He's very rich, and he has problems in town because his family basically owns the entire town. His dad's not there, and so there's this huge deal, and it's a big deal throughout the entire book because he's having to handle being 12 and his parents getting a divorce, and he's angry and he's upset and his mom's always gone. And the way that it was handled, it was a big deal at the beginning of the book, and I don't think it was handled very well, written very well. But then towards the end of the book, that didn't matter anymore. They don't discuss it like at all. And it just doesn't make sense for it to have disappeared completely from the storyline. And I'm sure that it gets picked back up again in the second book, but just the way it was written in the first book, I expected a lot more of it to be woven throughout the story, and it's not. And if you're going to make a huge deal out of something to begin with, it needs to be a big deal through the entire story. And not only that, but if you're going to talk about something that is a trigger like divorce for a middle grade kid, that's a pretty normal thing in today's society, and it can trigger a kid pretty heavily. So if you're going to write about it, you need to write well about it and not just handle it the way it was handled in this book. So those are the 5 things I liked and the 5 things I didn't like. I hope you enjoyed the way I did this review, and I'm going to go drink some hot tea and try to fix this. So if you've read the book or want to read the book, leave me a comment down below. Let me know if you like this type of review, all that jazz. Don't forget to give me a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Feel free to share it with your friends, and I'll talk to you guys soon.